Hey everyone, today we are going to see the shared lock in C++. So let us start without wasting time. So the first thing is the shared lock is basically meant for reader writers. When we are doing the operations like reading and writing at the same time, in those places, shared lock is used. But in the shared lock, we cannot directly use a normal mutex. We have to use a shared mutex. The properties are similar to the unique lock, which we have seen earlier, that it has unlock, it has deferred lock, it has try to lock. So all these functions, all these properties that the unique lock was also holding is also held by the shared lock. So we are familiar with these functionalities. But what actually is the difference between a shared lock and a unique lock? So let us understand this with an example. Let us say you have a cricket scoring website where you are trying to update the score and there are multiple users which are trying to fetch that score. So if you will consider yourself and users as multiple threads here, then in what areas can the concurrency can happen? So the easiest way where the concurrency can happen is when a user is trying to read the data and you are trying to write the data at the same point of time. In that case, the concurrency can happen. But the concurrency cannot happen if multiple users are trying to read the data because the data is not being altered. So if multiple threads are trying to read the same data, then it will not be an issue. So we should allow multiple threads to read the data, but we should maintain a synchronization that when we are writing the data at that point of time, no one should be allowed to read the data. For that purpose only, we have the shared lock. So let us create a small example, and the example will again contain reading and writing the data. We'll see that with the example itself. Shared mutex, we have also included it using namespace std. Now, let us say we have an integer int data. This is the data which we are trying to read and write. So we'll be having two functions, read data, which will be having some int id, let us say, or thread id. This is the thread which is actually trying to read the data. And there will be another function which is write data. Now, again, write data will have some value which we are going to write. Now, since we are trying to read the data, we can just see out the value. So, see out reader thread, thread ID, data value will be data, right? So, in this way, we are trying to read the data. So, data is a global variable. So, it says data is ambiguous. Let us try to change the name. Say we have data value and we'll take the same name over here. So in this way, we are trying to read the data. Now let us also write the data, which is very simple. We just have to say data value equals to val. So in this way, we are writing the data. Now, since we know with the example itself that we are going to fall under concurrency issue, so how are we supposed to solve it? So we just have to create a shared lock over here, and with that, the reader can take the lock when they are trying to read the data. So multiple readers will be allowed through the shared lock. Shared lock. We can write a shared mutex or we can leave it just empty and we can make a name and inside that SMTX, which is a shared mutex. So we'll just create a shared mutex SMTX. So now multiple threads will be able to read the data at the same time by taking the shared lock over SMTX. Now, the synchronization will be resolved when I put the lock over here, which will be the writer's lock. So just make sure that you are trying to create a shared lock when you're trying to read the data. But when you try to write the data at that time, you cannot use a shared lock. So you have to use a lock which is exclusive in nature. You cannot use the shared lock over here. So you can use any of the earlier locks that we have seen. You can use a lock guard, unique lock, or even the scope lock. So since we are dealing with a certain method, so let us only create a scope lock. Scope lock. So I think we have to also include mutex. Now in the scope lock, we just have to pass the same SMTX. So over the same mutex, I can create a scope lock. So this is writer's exclusive lock. I could have also used the lock guard or a unique lock because they are also exclusive. This is for the writer's operation, whereas we use the shared lock for reader operation. So I hope you would have understood how all of this is working and where to use a shared lock. And with the shared lock, how do we make use of lock guard, unique lock, or scope lock? Do like and subscribe the video. Thank you.